We're sorry, the number you have dialed is not in service at this time.
Hello?
Hey guys, this is Bill at ARCAT. All of us at ARCAT would like to congratulate you guys at the ArcaSpeak podcast on their 100th episode. It's a great podcast, as all of you know, so spread the word. Congratulations, guys. We're all looking forward to the next 100 episodes. See ya.
Hello?
Hey guys, this is Neil Barman calling from Victoria, BC, Canada, and I just wanted to thank you for so many great, interesting, informative, thought-provoking, and usually pretty entertaining shows. You've done a great service for the community, architectural community, of course, and keep it up. And I must say, I'm always amazed that you have something else to talk about, but you do, and I appreciate it. It keeps a great discussion going. Thanks, guys.
Welcome to ArcaSpeak, a fortnightly podcast about all things architecture. My name is Evan Troxel, and I'm one of your hosts along with Neil Pan and Cormac Phelan. Have you ever wondered what it's like to work in the profession of architecture? Have you ever worked with an architect? Have you ever wanted to be an architect? Maybe you're in school and don't know what you're getting yourself into, or perhaps you know exactly what it's like because you've been working in the profession for a long time, and you know that the more things change, the more they stay the same. Or maybe, just maybe, you're planning on changing the world. Join us as we have a casual conversation about our passion, architecture. It's time for some ArcaSpeak.
Welcome to a very special 100th episode of the ArcaSpeak podcast. I'm Neil Pan.
I'm Evan Troxel.
And I'm Cormac Phelan.
And this episode of ArcaSpeak is sponsored by ARCAT. Check out all the features they offer over at arcat.com. And we'll talk a little bit more about them later in the show. But first up, we have a friend of the show to announce.
We've got a brand new friend of the show here, and that is Rod Werner. And I'm going to read Rod's message because it's actually not Rod. This is a message from Rod's dog. This message is from Molly Wigglesworm. Molly is a 2-year-old pit bull / Chattahoola leopard dog mix who loves the podcast because her doggy daddy, Rod Werner, a.k.a. Vado Retro, always takes her for a longer walk every Monday morning, so he can listen to the fortnightly ArcaSpeak podcast. Nice working in of the word fortnightly. Thanks, Rod. She would donate more, but she is a dog. So Rod is down in Monroe, Louisiana. Thanks, Rod, for becoming a friend of the show, and we really appreciate it. If anybody else would like to become a friend of the show and get your message and name read on the air, we would love to hear from you. You can head over to arcaspeakpodcast.com/donate. Any donation over $5, you have the choice to get your name read on the air, and by becoming a friend of the show, you have our eternal gratitude because this show is supported by you, the listeners, and our sponsors. So head on over to arcaspeakpodcast.com/donate and donate today. Thanks very much.
All right. So today we're going to do something a little bit different. And since we always talk about life in architecture and things like that, we want to talk to, there you go, Neil, your first edit. We want to talk to...
Oh, no, that's staying in.
All right. Anyway,
cut that out.
We want to talk to the originator of the architectural blog, somebody who's always talking about life of an architect. We want to welcome on board Bob Borson.
Awesome. Neil, you're going to add a bunch of crowd noise to that moment?
Yeah, if I can figure out how to edit that in, sure, you bet.
Awesome. I'm looking forward to it.
How did you get so lucky to get the domain name? Because really that's where it all started, right? Lifeofanarchitect.com.
Well, the irony of it is I thought about that for about 5 seconds.
Yeah.
Punched it in, it was available, and I took it. I will freely admit that I lucked into that.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know how any of this stuff worked, which is actually why I started doing it in the first place. And I didn't realize just how good of a URL that was. And I'll tell you, since I just got to doing a bunch of back-of-house research on my site, that the phrase life of an architect is the most popular keyword by about a factor of 4 over number 2.
Wow.
Yeah.
What's number 2?
I think it's honestly, I think it's how much do architects make.
Wow.
Nice.
So, I mean, I think what's interesting, that the part that stuck out to me when what you were just talking about was that you just started to do it because you didn't know how to do it, right? It was all new. And I kind of approach projects that way too. What can I do on this thing that will make it a little bit different? So is that kind of what drove you to just beginning, was just trying to figure it out? Or did you have a master plan? I mean, I guess the topic tonight is really just about social media and blogging and all that kind of stuff that comes along with some of the things that we do. But I mean, it all had to start somewhere, right?
Yeah, the story that I share with people, it was Christmas of 2009, and I was talking to a good friend of mine who's an attorney, and he specializes in teaching other attorneys how to use technology to do their jobs better. And so we were having some conversation. I couldn't tell you exactly what it was, but he said I mean, this is probably verbatim, even though I wouldn't bet on it. But he goes, just subscribe to the RSS feed and put it in your Google Reader. And I literally had no idea what he just said. I didn't know what a Google Reader was. I'd never heard of an RSS feed.
Rest in peace, Google Reader. Come on.
I had no idea what any of these things were, and it made me feel technologically irrelevant. You know, that I think I was about 42 years old at the time. I mean, 32 years old at the time. And I thought, have I become stagnant? You know, have I moved into the area where I have a great deal of comfort in doing what I do? And so as soon as we had that conversation, I realized that this was something I needed to fix. And I think I had my website up and running in about 4 days after that.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. I mean, it is pretty quick to get through that. But take us through some of the thinking after you got lucky and registered a domain name and got that site online. I mean, now you've got it, and the crowds just start flocking in, right?
Hardly.
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy. That is kind of typical thinking sometimes.
Yeah, you know, so the continuation of that story is, and everybody who has ever started a blog ever in their life, you know, they have like two main concerns that I believe. One is, will anybody actually read it? Is the first fear. And the second fear, which quickly follows the first one, is if they do, will they think you're an idiot?
Yeah.
So I didn't have an agenda. I didn't have a platform that I felt needed a voice. I just was doing it because I wanted to learn how to do it. And I took a class when I was in college down at the University of Texas in Austin. And one of my professors taught this class called Architecture and Society. And he came out on the first day, and he was just telling us a story about how he decided to name this class. And it was, the architecture part was because we're all wanting to be architects, and we're going to talk about architecture a lot. And the and society part, he thought, is what gave him the latitude to talk about whatever else he wanted to. So when I sat down to come up with Life of an Architect, that literally that story went through my mind. And so the Life of an Architect name, I thought, would give me the latitude to talk about what it is that I do for a living. But if I wanted to talk about something else, I had that latitude, since it was the life of an architect, not specific to actually practicing architecture.
Yeah, I think that's kind of important, right? Because you have to be able to pivot or change your mind along the way and meld it to what you have no idea what it's going to become. So having that kind of thought in the beginning is relatively important when you're just doing it for fun and to pique your own to satisfy your curiosity and be able to do what you want with it.
Well, there's no question that exchange, you know, that idea of I needed to give myself a window or the latitude to be able to talk about whatever I wanted was present from the very beginning.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, I made the conscious decision to try to put a time limit on how much effort I put into writing the things that I was going to write. Because I don't consider myself a very good writer. Actually, I consider myself a very poor writer, but I talk a lot. And so what I was going to try to do was to write a first-person website, but I didn't want it to be a diary. But I couldn't pretend to be something that I'm not. and I like to think I have a pretty big vocabulary, but I don't like using words or jargon that people might not understand what the context is or what those words actually mean. Like the Archispeak. There are words that all architects know, and they use them when they talk to other architects. So I decided that this wasn't going to be a website for other architects, and I wasn't going to use jargon or lingo when I wrote something. And those turned out to be really important decisions that I made, and I'm glad I made them from the very beginning.
Sounds like a lot of parallels to what and why we do what we're doing.
I'm sure any of the ones that are successful or at least have some staying power, I would imagine they follow the same kind of track.
Well, it's very similar to, as you said, Cormac, what we did here. I wanted to learn how to do podcasts. I bought a mic like 8 or 9 months before we ever even started. So I just wanted to try it and do it. And like Bob, I'm a horrible writer too. I think I am. I do okay occasionally, but I like to talk more. So the audio thing appealed to me.
Well, I think it's just kind of natural that architects, especially when you get them in a group together, they kind of gravitate towards stories and, just not really necessarily the one-upsman, but just sharing war stories. It's same thing as I did when I'm sitting around the fire talking to fellow soldiers, that we just start talking and, start telling stories and kind of just commiserating with each other. And that's, anytime I read the blog, most of the time it's shaking my head saying, yep, I feel the same way. Yep. And that's hopefully what people get when they're listening to us, is kind of feeling a little bit of camaraderie in some of the stories that we share and talk about.
I'm sure that's it. So, but I take it from your comment that you guys have actually been to my website before?
Once or twice.
What's that URL again?
You'd never know. I'm pretty sure my wife, I don't think has ever been to my website.
Yeah. I don't think my wife's ever listened to the podcast. Actually, I know she hasn't.
Yeah, same here. And my wife's an architect.
Actually, the only time my wife has ever listened is when I edited, and I was just like, okay, I want you to listen to make sure it flows right and that I haven't messed up. And then about 10 minutes in, she was like, you might want to check that.
That's funny.
So I think the hardest thing about any of this stuff is well, first of all, starting is actually pretty hard for most people because they can't imagine what they would talk about. When once you start, you just start talking, right? I think that's kind of been the thing that keeps coming up in my household. And my wife's like, what episode are you on? And then I say some relatively big number for podcasting, right? She said, what can you possibly have to talk about still, right? And so, I would ask you the same question, Bob. When you started, you probably had no real outline of all the things you wanted to talk about. It's like you have to start somewhere, right? And then the second thing that is hard is sticking with it, I think. So to me, that's really what sets some of these blogs apart from all of the rest, is just the consistency. I agree with you on the consistency. I will confess that I never know what I'm going to write until I write it. I don't have an agenda or an editorial calendar. And I never... sound very similar again. We never know what we're going to talk about until we just start talking about it. Yeah, but I actually think that's actually a really important piece of information to consider, though, because, all right, so to date, I think I wrote a blog post tonight. It'll go out tomorrow. And it was the 775th article that I've written just on my site.
Wow.
And so you think about it, what could you talk about after 99 episodes? You got about 700 more to go. And then you really start figuring out that it's in the beginning it was really easy to come up with topics because my wife would be the first one to point this out. I have about 100 stories in the bag that she's heard 1,000 times. And they're the anecdotes they're my go-to. Everybody loves these stories. That it is what it is. And it was really easy to crank out these, you remember that time when I was in studio and blank happened? All this free advice. It was very easy to come up with. Well, now I've worked through all that low-hanging fruit. But the point, and I took a long time to get there, was because I don't have an editorial calendar, just like you don't, I think the fact that you talk about whatever it is you're doing or what's on the top of your mind in that moment creates a certain level of spontaneity that these types of formats really benefit from.
Mm-hmm.
If it was more calculated, I think it would feel calculated, as opposed to you running into your buddy like by listening to this podcast and you feel like, oh, I was listening to Cormac and Neil and Evan talk about such and such and such. It feels more natural and, more as you're part of this circle of people that are commiserating over shared experiences. And if you didn't have that kind of spontaneity to it, I don't think it would come across. I mean, it would come across as a different type of show than what this one is.
Yeah, I agree. I think that there's definitely something to that. I feel like it also takes the stress off of us of having to worry about preparing and doing the work that goes into preparing presentations, if you will, right? I mean, personally, I put tons and tons of hours and work into preparing presentations that ultimately have to come off perfectly. And in this situation, if that were the case, it would be overbearing enough to where I probably wouldn't want to do it. And so I think that is part of keeping it fresh and doable, right? Is keeping it light and loose, being able to talk about whatever we want to talk about, being able to switch the topic in the middle of an episode if we had to, if we wanted to. And then I think part of it feeds right into what you were saying, which is this is the journey. Like, this is not a recap of the journey. This is the journey.
Right.
And so when our listeners have been listening to the show since episode number 1, and I mean, our episodes usually end up around an hour, and as we alluded to before we began, we record for 2 or 3, and if you extrapolate that out for 100 episodes, I mean, you're looking at a lot of time, and then you want to add all the time editing and posting and all the other stuff that comes along with it. This is a huge commitment. But what's really cool is going to like an AIA convention or a Monterey Design Conference or somewhere where you run into somebody who says, I've been listening since the first episode. And what's so neat about that is, like, we actually have been on this journey together. And it's weird to me to hear somebody start listening at episode 94 and they're saying, I'm starting back at 1 and I'm going to catch up. To me, that's a really odd thing, right? Because, like, all that is the past, and the internet doesn't forget, right? That's one thing about all this stuff is, like, you can always go back and you can listen to it all from the very beginning and you can catch up. But because of the type of the show it is, I mean, there are contradictions that have happened over time. There is a lot of change in thinking. But you don't go back and you don't update all that stuff. It's not Wikipedia, right? It is a timeline of a journey. And so to me, it really, this is the right type of media for that. Like you said, this is very conducive to that. But at the same time, like, I don't know that I would want it any other way, because there's a lot of stress that comes along with that. Or I don't know if stress is the right word, but I would be concerned about keeping something more encyclopedic or accurate as time went on if it weren't so of the moment.
I agree with that, but you made a comment that was surprising to me, that if somebody starts at 94 and they say, I'm going to go back and start at 1, that seems odd to you. That seems perfectly normal to me.
It just sounds like an overwhelming amount of work.
Well, it's
to listen to.
Less so than recording it, I'd say. But,
yeah.
One of the things I would imagine you get, because I get it, and people don't have the luxury of listening to my dulcet tones talking about whatever it is that you guys talk about for 99 episodes. But this is part of them connecting with you as an individual, and they feel like you're their friends, right? Like, this is your guys that they'd want to hang out and drink beer with. So can you imagine being able to go back and drink beer and hang out with your buddies back to episode 1? That seems completely normal to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting.
I mean, I know things change, but depending on the order that they choose to listen to it, I'm not so sure that it matters which way it changes. If it goes from point A to point B or point B to point A, it doesn't matter to them. Changes that change, right? This is not a binary field, and the experiences that you guys are going to talk about aren't going to be binary either. It's going to be constantly evolving. But that doesn't mean, like, if you go back and read any of the stuff I wrote, some of that stuff, I could probably count on one hand the number of articles I've written that I kind of wish I didn't write, or I wish I hadn't written, I guess is a better way to put it. But I've never taken them down. And I'm not going to tell you which one they are either. But
I could probably
you probably could guess one or two.
No.
So what made you, I mean, one of the things I think we want to talk about is who should and who should not be doing this kind of a thing? I mean, I don't, there's no black or white there, but why did you choose yourself to become this voice? Or I don't even know if that's the right way to put it, but do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, but it's not the right way to put it, because when I started, it really was just to learn how to do it. And I'll tell you that what happened was, so in the beginning, I wrote every day for like a month. I wrote something every single day because I saw it I'm a creative person, at least I like to think I am. And I saw it as a creative challenge to sit down in front of the proverbial white screen and come up with something, right? Every single day. It was kind of exciting to do that at that point. Eventually became unbelievably stressful. And I would find myself laying in bed like at 2 a.m. on a Tuesday, wondering what I was going to write about on Friday, right? I already kind of had an idea of what I could do for the next couple of days, but then I'd hit a wall. And I'm worried about something that is 2 or 3 steps removed. And I go, this is insanity. I can't do this. So I went to Q Laugh Track, the very reasonable 3 posts a week. And I did that for about 3 years. And again, people ask me, how'd you do it? I have no idea how I did it. I look back on it now and I go, that was insane. But I did it. Yeah. And I go back and I read those ones now. And I know, yes, I do go back and read my own stuff because, in a sense, it's very much like a diary. I know what I was doing at certain times in my life, and so I get a lot of pleasure from going back and reading those. And I'll admit that I read stuff and I go, wow, that was really good, and it's still good. It was good when I wrote it. At least I thought it was good when I wrote it. I thought it was germane when I wrote it, and I thought it was true when I wrote it. 5 or 6 years later, I read it and I go, it's still true. It's still right. I'm surprised at how the shelf life of the stuff that I've decided to talk about has worked out as well as it has. Mm-hmm. I would imagine, I wonder, do you guys have experiences like that? I mean, have you ever gone back and listened to old podcasts and go, wow, that one was a total, we killed that one. That was awesome. I'm sure you did.
I can tell you what's happened to me, Bob, is when I'm listening to the show after the fact, and most of our episodes Evan has edited, so I wasn't involved in the process of listening to it over and over and over and over as you're editing. But after the fact, I'd be in the car, I'd be listening, and Evan or Cormac would say something, and in my head, I'd say something out, and it's exactly what I said on the show. So I've sort of had that sort of experience.
It's kind of deja vu.
Well, deja vu, or like, yes, I still feel the same way, or I still think the same thoughts. In fact, I usually think of a better way to say it upon reflection. But I've had that sort of experience.
Yeah.
Or I go back and I reflect. I'm like, wow, I really didn't sound like an idiot. Didn't. I said didn't.
Yeah, I think I'd fall into the category of, I wish I had said this, or this would have been a better zinger, or this would have been fun. I would be reconstructing how I said something over and over and over, but it wouldn't stop me from listening to it.
Yeah, I guess one of the things that I wonder when I read and listen to things like this, and the stuff that we're talking about is, do you feel like that voice was missing? Because I feel like it fills a certain niche, and I don't know that there are many other things out there that do. And so, I mean, is it a response to that, or is it just something that kind of organically happened and it just turned into that?
It's a little bit of both, but I'd say it was more organic and just kind of turned into something, and I was a bit overwhelmed in a positive way on just how positively the site was received. Mm-hmm. You know, I've talked to some people who are, I'd say they're in our circles. You know, they're people that we run into at national conventions, and they've been writing a blog for a good period of time, you know, over a year. And if they get, I don't know, 1,000 people in a month, they're feeling pretty good about stuff. Mm-hmm. If I got 1,000 people, if I woke up tomorrow and 1,000 people came by my site, I would think it was the end of the world. And I'd go, my server must be down or something, because it was probably I think it was the 10th post I ever wrote I was in Galveston, Texas, and I had read an article by somebody who, if I told you his name, you would know who he was. And he had done an interview for somebody, and he was complaining that architects don't get paid enough, which on the surface I generally agree with. But what what I don't agree with is the amount of belly aching that I hear, and I hear a lot of it. And I this is something I'd like to ask you about for later, is what type of correspondence you get having a podcast versus having a blog site. But I get a lot of belly aching from people who say that architects don't make as much as lawyers or doctors. And it drives me absolutely crazy. And so I was in Galveston, Texas, and I decided that I was going to write an article called The Top 10 Reasons Not to Be an Architect. And I gave myself 30 minutes to write it. There's like no graphics in it at all. But part of that was the next day I was going to write a second follow-up post called The Top 10 Reasons to Be an Architect. And this was kind of my own little pro-con list of doing this. So that was the 10th and 11th post. I believe that's right. 10th and 11th post I ever wrote. Well, those two posts went viral. And all of a sudden they're being published on all these websites. And they ended up in foreign language magazines. And I went from having about 300 people a day to about 1,500 people a day, probably within the first month that I started my site. And from what I understand, that just doesn't happen. And I reflect upon this and I think, had I started this and nobody ever bothered to show up and read it, I don't know that I would have continued. I think I would have checked the box. I understand what a Google Reader is now and what an RSS feed is and how they work. And I might have stopped. But the fact that I did get as much traffic and there was so much engagement, I thought was really cool. So that's probably more than any other reason why I stuck with it. I don't know that I connected the point that I felt like that site was filling a hole that existed on the internet. But to that end, and I know I'm hogging the conversation, there was, and I don't know if you guys went through this since you have a podcast, but if you have a blog and you do generic research like, how do I promote my blog, a type of search? Well, I linked it to my Facebook account. I set up a Life of an Architect Facebook page, and I used this service so that every time I published an article, it would automatically post to my Life of an Architect Facebook page. And after I did that, it popped up this little dialog box, and it said, here are 3 other blogs that we think are similar to yours. And I just got through reading an article that said that you should reach out to other bloggers and do link exchanges, which is the process of I put a link to your website on my page, and you conversely do the same thing back for me, and we kind of self-promote one another. So this list popped up, and it was this website, and it actually was a residential and kitchen design blog site. It was the first one on the list. And so I reached out to that guy. His name was Paul Aniter, and it turned out that probably was one of the most fortuitous emails I ever sent, because at this time, and again, it's early 2010, he was kind of a big deal, and he was really well connected in the kitchen and bath design community of all these people. Let's be honest, architects are so far behind the curve on the social media thing and blogging and sharing the information they have and the data with other people out there. Interior designers, kitchen designers, man, for every one architectural site, there's 1,000 interior design sites. And they might not even be interior designers. They just might be decorators or people that have a knack or some style. And they're putting this information out there, and architects are really far behind the curve. So I ended up contacting this guy, and next thing I know, he's promoting me to like everybody he knows. And my traffic just kept getting more and more and more, and more people kept reaching out to me, and I started getting asked to go travel to places and to speak to groups. And I asked him at one point, I even wrote a blog post about it. I said, why are you doing this? Why are you helping me like this? Because it got to the point where I was like, there's something weird happening here, because nobody just helps other people like this. I mean, it wasn't just, oh, that was nice. I mean, it was like he was actively helping and promoting and making calls on my behalf to other people. I mean, it was staggering. I'm overwhelmed by it even when I think about it. And it was because he said that the internet needed my voice. And I took it at the time not to mean Bob Borson's voice, but an architect talking about architecture in a way that anybody could be a part of it. That's the way I took it. And that was a watershed moment for me. And I thought, well, I have to do it now. I have to keep doing this. And that's why we started the whole Architalks thing, where we're just trying to get anybody who has an architectural blog site. We want to get them to participate so that everybody can learn that there's other architects out there that are talking about what we do and how our careers work. I wish more people did it, quite honestly. Or I wish more people did it better. Maybe that's a nice segue into our topic.
So what do you mean by that? What do you mean you wish more people did it better? I mean, what's the goal with ArchiTalks? And then what, if you could paint the picture of how you saw that vision working itself out? I mean, what does that mean?
Well, when I say I wish people did it better, I think, blogs have an inherently two-way dialogue built into them, right? Unlike traditional print media, which is one way. Somebody writes it, it gets printed in a magazine, you read it, and your only way to interface with somebody is to write a letter to the editor or something. Whereas if I write an article and I post it on my website, somebody can read it and 5 seconds later send me a message and I'll respond to it. They'll leave a comment on my site. It's instant. There's dialogues that are happening that go beyond the initial content that was created that spurned the conversation to begin with, or at least the comments. And so as a result of that, I think all blogs need to be first-person narratives. It needs to be a specific person telling a story from their point of view. And what you see a lot of times, and you see it on Twitter a lot and some of the other social media platforms, you don't know who you're talking to. It's firm X, and you go, well, who am I talking to at firm X? Is it the same person I was talking to yesterday at firm X?
Yeah, 3 different people, right?
Yeah, and I go, what if you guys were manning some Twitter account and it's just the ArchiSpeak, and they want to talk to Neil, right? So they have to go, is this Neil? Who do I got today? Who's manning the account? And I think that creates a disconnect if you don't know the person you're speaking with. It makes it really hard to form a relationship where any kind of meaningful dialogue can be created. So if you're not talking in the first person, I think that you're missing the point of what social media is and what the point of a blog is supposed to be. They're not heavily editorialized. They're supposed to be spur of the moment, real-time exchanges. That's how it's supposed to be. That's the point of them. Anything else is just an article, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I find a lot of times people use it as a marketing tool rather than exactly what you're saying is the first-person narrative. They kind of get away from they're painting that magazine article. They're not painting kind of an emotional or a visceral thought or response.
Yeah, that's the other point is that people, and I think this is that part of, when I mentioned people are afraid to, when they first start off, that nobody's going to read it. And then if they do read it, that people are going to think they're idiots. I think that's part of it. I think that there's such a fear to actually take that first step or to do this in such a, where you lay yourself bare and allow your mistakes to be on display to somebody else, which is something that took me a long time to get used to. I'm still not used to it, but I've realized that it doesn't really matter. So I've found this way to balance I don't want to look like an idiot with nobody thinks you're an idiot, because we all make the same mistakes. We all, everybody's human. Nobody expects perfection. So if I say 2 with 1 O, and I should have said 2 with 2 O's, I really don't get too much grief about it. Occasionally somebody will send me a message and go, you have a grammar error on your site. And I always think, well, you must be new to my site because I have grammar errors everywhere.
It's all grammar errors.
This must be your first article that you've ever read. So, but when people try to promote what it is they do as opposed to who they are and why they do it, it comes across as billboard, right? Personal billboard. And that's what I don't think that's right. I don't think that people will experience success when they do it in that way.
Kind of what we were thinking of when we were thinking of a topic to have a conversation about with you was not necessarily about your blog and blogging in general or podcasting or things like that, but why we do it, but also why shouldn't we do it? And so a lot of times, well, you said that you did it because you wanted to learn how to blog. You wanted to kind of have a creative outlet. And in Neil, this is really started off as a Neil brainchild, and he started to talk about wanting to carry on a conversation, kind of like you get around with your architecture friends and you're talking, and you just have that conversation, and it's this emotional and just kind of like really fun conversation about architecture, but you learn a lot about architects and architecture through that conversation, and you kind of wanted to carry it on through the putting it out in the internet. And so we're doing it because of kind of the love and the passion for the profession. And there's those kind of pursuits of why we do it. And then there are people who we talk about the kind of more marketing and self-serving, but sometimes it's not necessarily self-serving per se. You know, they're just trying to reach out and drum up business or jobs or things like that. So what kind of, in your opinion, is the right and wrong way of using a blog? Is it for a marketing tool? I mean, yours is purely about the passion of the profession, of your passion of the profession.
Right. Well, what you just said gets to the root of, I think, every time I've given a presentation on this topic, less so these days than in the beginning. People want to know what the return on investment is. Like, okay, if I'm going to put resources towards this, I got to have some kind of measurable of what I can expect in return. So when I started, I didn't have that metric. That was not a requirement. And so it freed me up to be a regular person who happened to be an architect talking about what they did. Now, what's been interesting is, despite the fact that I don't treat my site as a source of business development, it has absolutely become a major source of business development for me. And I've struggled really hard with making sure that I don't treat it in the manner that, let's see, how can I phrase this?
You don't treat it as a billboard?
Yeah, despite so when it didn't really turn into a source of business development until I got my name on the door. And then all of a sudden people realized that they could call me and they could hire me. Before, I was just some guy who worked in some office. And so the idea that I read this guy's articles, I like him, I trust him, I feel like I know him. These are all things that existed, but not too many people thought, well, I'll call him up and hire him, right? Because for all they know, I'm one cog of many at the firm I was working at. But once I got my name on the door, that changed in a fairly substantial way. And I still treat it as a tool, because people don't just hire me because I write a blog. What happens is they feel like they know who I am, what my beliefs, what my mores are, what my social values are. And since I do think, as a residential architect, that my personality figures heavily into the people that hire me, because I go, this is going to be fun. We're going to have a good time, and you're going to like what you get at the end, and we're going to be happy and work together on this stuff. It definitely gives me advantage, because those people, when they sit down, everybody who does research on the internet these days. So I don't think I've been on an interview in the last 3 years that somebody didn't already know a lot about me. Mm-hmm. And that's both good and bad. Like I said, there's a couple articles on my site that I feel like I should take down, but I told myself I wouldn't take them down. If I thought enough of them to put them up, I won't pull them down. So to carry on, Cormac, what you were kind of alluding to is, when people start to treat these websites as pure business centers, I think it neuters them to the point that they don't actually engage the people in a meaningful manner. And it's not to say that they can't be business centers. They absolutely can. I mean, mine has evolved into that in the most unlikely of ways. But I went about it in such a way that nothing that I do presents itself as a finished product. I mean, I don't know if you guys go to my site often enough, but I don't really show finished photography on my site. I don't ever say, look how awesome I am. Right. It's always, this could have been better. This is how we did this. Or I share a detail, or I tell them I'm working on a project here and I didn't know that this existed. There's a lot of openness and a lot of transparency to what we do, and that translates to the people who aren't architects who are reading it. And if you look at a lot of corporate websites, that's not the case. Everything's very polished. It's a very finished product.
Right. Yeah.
I think that authentic voice is the thing that's missing from so many pieces of, I don't know if they're all just sites and blogs and all the different social media and stuff. If it goes through the polish machine that you're talking about, it does. I don't know. It's almost easy to tell reading the first 3 sentences whether it's going to be like that or not, right? Because you start to see how similar it is to somebody else's blog who maybe the latest thing is not writing paragraphs, it's writing sentences that turn into paragraphs. And so then somebody starts to follow that, and they start to name their blogs, this thing happened and you won't believe what it is. And then their headlines are 5 ways to do this. And you start to see this homogeneous marketing machine run through these blogs, and that authenticity is completely gone. And to me, like, that is an instant turnoff. Total instant turnoff. I don't understand why that has become so prolific. I mean, obviously it works for people to click on those headlines if all that matters is people clicking on headlines. But they're never going to know who you are. And I think it would be a disservice, especially because your website has turned into a business machine not a business machine, but something that leads business to you, if it weren't authentic, right? Because then it's like, now you have to worry about what you said and what you didn't say. Like, the nice thing that you can always rely on is that you've always spoke exactly how you speak, right? And so people understand, like you said, they understand you. And I feel like the same thing with our podcast. Like, luckily with this, it's even harder to go back and edit it. I mean, I think it's one thing to edit text. It's another thing completely to edit people's actual voices down to something different. And so our thoughts are our thoughts. And a lot of times they're really raw thoughts. They were just thought of that second, and they're not something that we spend a lot of time finessing, right? Which you can do with words on a website. And so I think it's important to kind of set those ground rules up front if you are looking for that authentic voice on the internet. And then, to me, that is a very important aspect to what we do.
Well, and that's one of the problems that we have in the profession in its own right, is just most people have an issue with architects. They may not know what that issue is, but they're like, oh, architects are egotistical, or they're austere and standoffish, and things like Life of an Architect or Archispeak. We try to bring an authentic voice of our passions, our thoughts, our ideas. So we're really not sugarcoating or painting a picture of something lovely and rosy and sending it through the marketing machine and coming out with something perfect and sterile. It's just what it is. It's the ums and the ahs and crap like that we get so much grief over.
Oh no, I cut a lot of that out. Don't worry.
Well, it'd be interesting to see if you didn't edit that out. The weird pauses, the poorly turned phrases that get amended after you've botched the first attempt. And
yeah, sometimes we do that, and sometimes we leave them in just because there's that flow of natural conversation. And Neil made a comment, not too long ago. We were texting back and forth, and he's just like, these changes in your thoughts and stuff, they're just killing me. I can't edit it. And it's just like, he's pulling his hair out because we've stopped and then we've changed tact real quick and we changed tact back, and he's just like, it sounds like a choppy edit, but no, that was you just changing your mind.
Well, you need to quit that. Obviously, was the message. Quit changing your mind.
It clearly was.
Well, it's interesting you talk about the ahs and the ums, because one of the things that I did on my site, since I'm not a good writer, I tried to write like I speak. And I from the very earliest posts that I wrote, I kind of made up my own version of grammar. So I use versions, like I use ellipses a lot to build in pauses and parentheses and italicized words so that you could understand that, ooh, he's having a conversation with himself right now inside his head, or oh, that's the equivalent of an eye roll. It was very purposeful. And the thing that I do find great humor in is if I go back and look at some of those early posts, there are entire paragraphs that are one sentence.
Oh, hey, that sounds like me.
Like, it just doesn't. I actually wrote a post called "So Sorry I can't believe I know the names of all of them. So sorry, it's a disease, and it has to do with just how bad my grammar is. But I don't care. This is. I'm keeping it real, yo. You're gonna edit that out for me, Neil.
No, that might be the intro. That might be the name of the show. Keeping it real, yo. No, but the funny thing is that it's exactly how I write. I have parentheses, so I'm talking, and then I have a thought in my head, and that's the parentheses, and then there's the ... Oh, and by the way, or I'll drop an F-bomb or something like that, because that's how I talk, but I do edit out the you-knows. Apparently, I do.
Have you ever written a you-know? You've never...
No.
Yeah, that would be...
I've never written a you-know.
You'd have to seek professional help if that actually happened.
Yeah. I think I'm pretty... I think I need to anyway, but, you know.
Okay, well, let me ask...
You're killing me here.
So meta.
All right, so let me ask you guys a question. Since we're talking about social media and who should do it and maybe who shouldn't do it, or at least the considerations somebody should go through before deciding to do this, do you think the age of the person who's going to take over and go on an adventure like writing a blog or doing a podcast, do you think that figures into the consideration?
It depends on what I'm looking for in the content. If it's somebody who's just talking about passion, I mean, passion's ageless, right? But when I'm looking for somebody who's been down the same road that I have or shared some similar experiences and stuff like that, sometimes I'm looking for similar experiences. But yeah, it could be somebody younger, but for the most part, it's just kind of like my peers, my age group kind of thing.
I would say, Bob, no. It doesn't matter because we're all on this journey. Whatever stage of the journey you're at, there's an audience.
Well, that's true.
There's an audience for your stage of the journey that's there. And so I don't think it matters.
I would add that just having conversations that I have daily with people, there are a lot of people, all different ages, younger and older. And I guess it's all within, I don't know, 10 or 20 years of up and down from me. I would say maybe 5 down and 15 up or whatever, where I wish people would post stuff and save it for people to read, because so much of it just stays in people's head. And I have these amazing conversations with people, and I wish there was a way to capture those and share them. And there's just so much of that. And I'm not saying it's all gold out there, right? But there are so many that I do have that I'm literally blown away by and make me think and make me ponder and go back, or wish I had heard that sooner, or there's a lot of different things, right? And I wish that there was a way to capture that and make it available to people. And I don't know how you make all that work. It probably would just be a nightmare mountain of information, but there's so much great information out there that people who are younger add to the conversation, a new way to think about something that I would have never thought of. And there's ways that people have been doing things or have an experience that I am just now coming up against, that I would love it if they would start dedicating that stuff to some kind of a repository out there.
Hey, Bob, one of the things I would like to touch on is that I think what you were mentioning earlier about a blog or a podcast being authentic. The first thing that will turn me off to anybody's posts or any podcast is when it goes through that marketing machine, that polishing. Not necessarily polishing. I shouldn't say that, because we try and do a quality show, a quality audio show. And so the polish is there, but the marketing machine isn't there. And there is a sense of, if there's realism to it and it's your voice, I think that's one of the reasons why your blog is so successful, because it is your voice and you talk. I mean, we've all met each other in person and you do talk exactly the way you write.
Full throttle.
And I think, yeah, exactly.
I would add to that too, that it's intentional, and I'm sure it's similar to you. Like if you were to put it through that system, then it really sets the tone for everything that comes after that, and it's very hard to get away from. And then you're kind of beholden to something that you may not agree with later on. I mean, it's much easier to go the other way around than it is to be beholden to that thing, that advertiser, that way of writing, that speak that you've come up with, that it then kind of sets that tone, and that could be detrimental to the whole thing.
Well, and I'll tell you this, because it's in the early days, I made my wife a promise that when I started this, that I wouldn't spend our limited household dollars on this hobby of mine. So when I first started, I did take ads. I put ads on my site for a little while. They were never in the body of the articles. They were always sidebar kind of stuff. But I started getting a lot of invitations from other people to write for them. And I didn't particularly like writing for myself, so I never really wanted to do it. And I make a good living as an architect, so I said no. Or I'd throw out some just ridiculous amount of money, and I found that people still said yes to that. And those articles turned out to be the hardest, most bone-crunching agony. I mean, I couldn't tell you how much I hated it. And yeah. I was getting paid good money to write these articles. And I thought that what they want is they wanted me, right? Because they're like, oh, we love your website. We love the audience that you bring in the mix. Will you come and write these articles for us and we'll pay you $1 billion? I was like, absolutely. It sounds like great. But then I would write the first article and they'd say, yeah, then they'd send it by some editor and they're like, well, maybe you can change this and maybe you should, I don't know, this is a little redundant right here and this is bad grammar right here and I'm not even sure this is a word. And so next thing you know, it goes through the machine, right? And at the end, There's nothing me left, right? It's a press release with my name on it. And it got to the point to where I would end up having conversations saying, why do you have me doing this, right? Why don't you just hire a copywriter to do this? Because A, it'll be better. B, it'll probably be cheaper. C, you'll probably get it on time every single time. Because what you're asking me to do is not who I am. It's not my skill set. And I hate it. And it's gotten to the point where I won't do it anymore because it's what the companies who have the budget to hire somebody to write content for them, what they want is not what I do. And I would challenge, and I think you can tell actually too, I get asked to promote a lot of stuff, right? Which I never do. Well, I shouldn't say never. I got a coffee maker once because I told my office about it and they said they would kill me in my sleep if I didn't do it. Because they all wanted this coffee maker. And I don't even drink coffee. But I did it. But they let me write a post the way I write posts. And it wasn't hard. And I enjoyed myself. And it turned out to be a really positive kind of piece. And they were really happy with it. But then I might get something from somebody who says, hey, well, here's this. Take your photograph and we'll print it onto a piece of canvas like it's art. And if you write this post promoting our product, we'll give one to you for free, and it's worth like $18. And I go, why would anybody sell themselves for $18 in product? It's not even $18 cash, like where you can actually go buy a lunch or something. It was a crummy photo on a piece of canvas. My apologies to people out there who have photos on canvas. But I go, who would do that? And then all of a sudden, in the email that they send you trying to get you to do this, they have links to other examples, and it's all mommy blogs or something else. And it seems so disingenuous, like they're tricking their readers into thinking how much they love this crummy turn your photo into canvas art thing so much that they just had to talk about it when I know that they got paid to do it. And I can't tell you how wrong that sits with me. And whenever I come across a site, as soon as they do that, I'm out. And I mean, I'm not just out on that article, I'm out, period.
Now, would it have been better if it was not just on canvas, but as like a throw pillow?
I had a very nice woman once who made throw pillows, said she'd make me throw pillows if I put a link in. And I go, bless her heart, it's very sweet, but I'm going to take a pass on that. And I probably get 20 offers like that a week. It's maddening.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we have ads on the show, and I feel like a lot of times, well, we've had comments or people are even very recently saying your ads that you read, I hate that part of the show. And like, we get it, right? That but to us, this really, especially with some of our sponsors, it has been a partnership of them supporting and making the show possible.
Sure.
And it is a huge undertaking. I think one of the things that was commented on was we're supposed to be what did they say?
Successful architects.
We're supposed to be successful architects. I can't believe they're doing this. And it's like, well, we're supposed to be a lot of things. I mean, you could enter anything you want into that sentence, and nobody ever said that we were, or if we weren't. I mean, it's projecting, but it's also. But
here,
one of those.
This is a clarification. I think it's important. You're not presenting that out to be something that it's not. Every website I go to has ads on it, right? It don't bother me. It's when it's presented as something that's disingenuous, like, oh, I love this canvas art thing. When you go, that's not right. That's not true. So I don't have a problem with ads or supporters or underwriters. I have zero issue with any of that kind of stuff. It's hey, I'll give you $35 or $150 if you put a backlink into this article for me, right? And I won't do that. And I mean, I'm sure this could have added up to a lot of money over the last 6 years, but I think it's really important and I think people understand the difference between sidebar ads. But as soon as you start putting something into your content, I think you've crossed a line there.
You lose the authenticity.
Yeah, and so despite the fact that it has fairly substantial financial ramifications, this kind of high road that I've decided to take, I've not lost any sleep or second guess that decision from day one.
And that's why people keep reading it, though.
Yeah, and I think it's important that people understand that when they make the decision to do that. And here's the thing that people don't understand. So the success I had with my site it's a double-edged sword, right? There's a lot of really crummy stuff that comes along with it. And I complain about it a little bit. People who know me might say I complain about it a lot. But I had to move my website from the people who were hosting it for $7 a month to, I pay $1,400 a year for my server right now because of the traffic I get. And that's out of my pocket. It would be awesome if I could easily say, oh, I get an underwriter from such and such, and as a result, they'll pay for my server costs. That would be great. But it's a line that I've decided to draw, so I don't do that.
Yeah, I think there's always going to be that kind of thinking is this going to take away some control that I have, right? It goes back to, am I beholden to something? Like, do I have to talk a certain way? Do I always have to present something in a certain light? And it takes away all of the burden if you make that decision up front so that you can sleep at night. You're not worried about anything. Like the only limits that you're putting on this are your own, right? So like you said before, you would lay awake at night worried about what you're going to be posting on Friday if you can't come up with something. And again, that was your own limitation that you had created at that point where you had decided the schedule and you were sticking with it. And I definitely know what that's like. I mean, I've tried a lot of different things over the years on the web, and like creating memberships. All of a sudden, it's like, oh, this is going to be great. I'm going to be able to have people basically continually support me to do this thing. And then all of a sudden, it was like, oh crap, now I have to do this thing.
Yeah.
and that is definitely the nice thing also about the web is you can be flexible with experimentation, but it really forces you to think about kind of the long game and where you want to take it. And the more constraints that you put in place, the harder that becomes to keep up.
Let's take a break from the conversation and talk about ARCAT. We're all pretty busy and sometimes feel like we could use another hand to help out. Would you like someone to draw CAD details for you, create BIM objects, or write specifications? How would you like all of that for free? ARCAT is your answer, and ARCAT has already done all of this work for you. Search the ARCAT libraries for CAD, BIM, specs, catalogs, videos, and more. All of this content created for you, free of charge, and no registration required. Stop registering on sites for content. Just come to ARCAT and find what you need. ARCAT has created a website devoted to you, the building professional, to find building product information fast and hassle-free. Check out ARCAT today at arcat.com, and don't forget to provide some feedback on the site. There's a button on the right side of every page. Have a suggestion to make ARCAT better? Click the feedback button and let them know, and tell them that ArcaSpeak sent you. Thanks to ARCAT for sponsoring this episode of ArcaSpeak. Now let's get back to the conversation.
Well, let me ask you guys a question since you've asked me so many questions. And it kind of goes back to I think what the topic is for this chat is, have you guys ever talked about, if people listen to the finished product, the finished podcast that you write, they go, oh, it was an hour and 2 minutes, right? Great, that'd be easy. I could spend an hour and 2 minutes once a week chatting with my buddies to make this cool podcast. But the truth is it's not an hour and 2 minutes. like you said, it might take you 2 or 3 hours worth of recording, and then somebody's got to edit it for God knows how long. And then I don't know if you get emails from people who ask you questions about the stuff they read. And when we talk about who should do it and who shouldn't do it and what's important, things like consistency and dedication and sticking to it and that kind of stuff, part of it's the dedication to supporting the content that you create. Would you agree with that?
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So can you, if we're pulling the curtain back here, talk a little bit about what it takes to deliver a finished product. When your podcast, when it's done, what does that represent? And it's, and give me a week of what your time with this podcast entails.
Wow.
Because don't you think people would be surprised to learn that?
Hundreds and hundreds of texts.
Yeah, lots of texts that go back and forth throughout the week in between episodes, right? And not all of it is exactly show related, but I think what does go back and forth though is ultimately show related in that we've become great friends over the 4+ years we've been doing this, and I think that comes through in the show. We kid each other, we play around a lot, and much more of that happens outside of the recording booth than inside, but that leads to it, and the conversation, the casualness of it all stems from all of that other communication that we do, right? Everything you practice, you get better at. So there's that. Then sometimes there is the 2 or 3 hours of recording to generate that 1 hour of show. And then I
would also add that sometimes there are recordings that just never turn into a show.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. We have done that before as well.
Many, many times.
I still want to go back and do that one show where we kept playing music back and forth for like 3 hours. But Bob, to get to the other part of your question, there are emails, there's work being done on the backside, either responding to people or working with our sponsors to coordinate that. There is work being done on the social media side for the postings themselves. That all has to be done and written and posted and reposted continually. That just is moments throughout every single day, all week long, weekends. It's nonstop, right? And then in addition to that, I don't know how much time Evan spent editing. He's very good, and he's much faster than I am. But I can tell you there was an episode this summer. It was one of the first episodes I actually edited myself, and I spent about 19 hours over a Saturday and a Sunday. So do the math there. There's not a lot of time in between, especially since the show goes live at 9:00 on Sunday night. It was pretty much my entire weekend trying, and a good portion of that was learning how to do it. But it's an all-consuming thing. I'll probably spend anywhere from 6 to 8 hours editing an episode, and that's editing, producing, writing the show notes, coordinating the graphics. We've now pretty much put a picture of something that we've taken typically on the show notes, and then coming up with the creativity of the writing for the show notes, and then all of the different posts. So all of that goes in, and then just posting the episode, getting all of that, doing the tags in iTunes. So if anybody out there wants to start a podcast, it can be done. It's far more work than doing, I think, a blog site, which is, there's so many more tools available. Like you can go to Medium, right? And boom, in 5 minutes, you have a blog. And there's not a whole lot of extra work there. But to actually generate and produce a podcast, it's a boatload more work.
Well, how does
I would add.
I'm sorry, no.
There is a ton of other stuff that you, once you set it up, you kind of forget about it. But the initial setup took a lot of time and effort to figure out. So I mean, there's the software that you have to learn how to edit it. There's the website design that you have to create, and all the graphics and all the typography and all the copyright and making the buttons work. And then there's the stuff like our show notes. Like, how does that work? How does that whole system work? How does an RSS feed go into MailChimp and how do you set up the template for that, and where does the data go, and who does it go to, and how do they sign up? And so there's a lot of other things that have been done along the way that obviously we try to automate as much of that as we possibly can to make our job easier so that it doesn't take more than 19 hours a weekend to do it. But all that stuff is added up. And so like really, I don't even think there's a way to quantify how much effort has gone into creating a podcast. And does that mean they're all that hard? No. I mean, we definitely have a bar that we've set to make it happen, and to make it happen how we want it to happen. But there's also tons of personal control kind of being wielded over this whole thing, right? Like, we're not having anybody do any of this for us. So that plays into it as well. But I definitely think that that it's way bigger of an undertaking than anybody kind of thinks it is. I mean, it's just like the book that I just wrote. I mean, it was like, holy crap, who would have thought it would have taken that much time and effort to actually do it until you actually do it. And then how do you do it well? So I think any new thing that we take on like that is a huge undertaking that nobody who if anybody hasn't done it, they just don't know. And so we've had people actually comment on. There was this one guy for a while. I'm sure he doesn't listen anymore, but it was like, why don't you guys transcribe every show? If you transcribed every show, you would have this many more listeners. You know, I would be able to tell everybody all about this.
No. I could skim through the dialogue in only maybe 10 minutes instead of having to waste an hour of my time listening to you. That was his point.
It's not, it wasn't delivered very well, but it's not invalid.
No, absolutely not. And it's like, well, that's great. But I mean, again, thinking about what it took to actually get to where we even are,
sure,
is a huge amount of work. And now you're talking about having a transcription service go through your thing, or are you going to do it yourself, or are you going to have some system automatically do it for you, and it's going to be terrible?
That'd be a nightmare.
Yeah.
All right. So here's my follow-up, because we're going deep on this, deeper than I thought we would on this. But there's 3 of you on this, right? So how does the division of responsibilities work? Is it ebb and flow? Is it someone is busy this week, so someone else picks up their slack? Or, I mean, how does that work? Because, most people who might be listening to this, who are considering starting a website or a blog or a podcast, they probably aren't 3, right? They're probably just one person who's thinking about doing this. And so if they hear the horror stories about how long it takes for you guys to do it, they look at that and they go, well, that's just one guy of the 3. I'm one person. Is it going to take me 39 hours to do it? I mean, so can you talk a little bit about how you guys have figured out who takes on what responsibilities and how that's worked?
Well, I'll start off by saying when we first started, Evan had a lot of experience editing as being a musician and having a bit more web experience than at least I did. And so he put in a boatload of work up front in establishing the website and doing our first edit and continuing to do the edits for the majority of the shows, almost like 90+% of them so far.
Yeah.
And so very early on, Evan was, I think, like after the first episode or 2, you kind of threw up your hands and it was like, help on the show notes. So I took over that. I'm still doing those. Even when I edit, I do the show notes as well.
Hey, Neil, the consensus is that Evan is the brains of the 3 of you. Well, I'll confess that.
That's the consensus.
That's the consensus.
Hey, you know what? After editing 90+ episodes, I'll gladly give him that title. Absolutely.
Oh, yeah. I totally agree.
But we've all pitched in at different times. I'm doing more of the editing now. Cormac picked up some episodes when I had a deadline and I was going to be out of town. I forget what it was, but I couldn't do it. So we've all pitched in at different times to do different things on the show. So I wouldn't say it is not a one person does everything and nobody else does anything sort of collaboration.
Yeah, I wouldn't expect it to be just the one person. But all right, so let me ask you this. So since you all have your individual, say, Twitter accounts, right? If somebody wants to talk, like Neil, if I want to talk to you, I send you a tweet, or Evan, or me, or Cormac. That's just how it works. So how does the ArcaSpeak Twitter account function? Do you all have access to it? Do you use it just to kind of promote the show, or is there any kind of engagement, meaningful engagement or exchanges that happen on your Twitter account, for instance, to support the podcast?
So we all have access to the account, and we will all respond at different times depending on who's available to do it. I probably do most of, so if you're tweeting ArcaSpeak on Twitter, it's most likely I'm the one who's responding, although that's not always true. And there is engagement that happens, maybe not as much as what happens maybe on our own individual Twitter accounts, but there is some engagement. And of course, this summer, we also, from our ArcaSpeak Twitter account, we hosted the monthly AIA chat. So there is a lot that goes on there as well.
And a lot of times we'll have the conversation where it may start at ArcaSpeak, and then we pull all three of us together in our own individual accounts and ArcaSpeak. And so we have kind of this four-way conversation responding back with all of us. And so we pull each other in so that you kind of get three different responses or three different ideas or three different attacks of a conversation. So it gets a little bit more convoluted, and then there's more names to shorten up the 140 characters to even less of a conversation. But it works sometimes.
I would say that most of the time the ArcaSpeak account is PR for the show, and if somebody tweets the show in that way, we will respond and just say thanks or a retweet here or there or a favorite. But when it actually is a question, I think most of the time we pick it up with our personal Twitter accounts so that we have that personal connection.
Yeah.
And then we might still CC ArcaSpeak just to keep it all in a thread. But for the most part, it goes individual at some point.
Okay, so what would you tell somebody who messages you and says, I want to do a podcast? What would you tell them?
Do it.
Run.
Do it. We need more voices out there. We need people with the passion to actually say something about this profession. I mean, let's lift the veil. Let's have the conversation. Let's show people that we really give a shit about what we do. And so, do it. Obviously, the question typically always is okay, so now how do I do it?
How often?
And then we send them email. Then we send them Evan's email address, and then we go from there.
I would also add, though, I mean, something that, based on your previous question about what does it actually take, it's not like they all take this much work. I mean, and actually, I've thought about it quite seriously. Like, if I were to do it again, how would I do it differently? And I definitely would, but I think we're on a road that we've set up, and we're going to stay on that road. But if there was another podcast, I mean, it is more work. The more people, the more hosts you have on the show, the more work it is. And when you have a guest, it gets exponentially more work. I mean, there's just so many variables that play into that. If it's one person doing a show, that has its efficiencies, right? If you have two people doing a show, I mean, that it's great, and it doesn't have to be a lot of work. And depending on how you set it up, it really doesn't have to be a lot of work. Like, you can decide one of your rules is we're not going to edit the show, right? We're just going to say start and stop, and we're going to put it out there. That's a valid podcast, right? I mean, it's a lot of people do that. So I don't think it has to be as hard as we make it. But at the same time, like, because of the way we've decided to do it, much like your website, it has led to a lot of opportunities that we would otherwise potentially not have had. And so I think because of the level of attention to detail that we give it, and because we show up every 2 weeks to do it, it has led to things that we never thought would happen. And so again, it just is like one of the reasons to do it is to put yourself out there and see what happens, because I want to design my life. Like, I don't want someone else to tell me how my life's going to be. And so this is one of those ways that I do that.
Okay, so if somebody hears that and they go, all right, I'm still on board. Have you found that recording once every 2 weeks, is that the sweet spot for you, or do you think that's the sweet spot for any podcast, or what about the length? I'm sure you guys get a lot of comments about the length, both positive and negative. Because an hour podcast, that's a long podcast, and I'm sure that adds to the amount of work that you're doing.
It is, and there's no right answer, I don't think. I mean, there's some podcasts that are 5 minutes. There's some that say, no matter what, we'll stay under 30 minutes. There's some that say we're the 45-minute sweet spot for your commute. I mean, there's no way to know I listen to podcasts that some of them go for 2 or 3 hours. And the beauty of podcasting is like there's a pause button, right? Like, so you don't have to, it's not live. You get to come back to it, and it can be a multi-day thing if you want. Like, that's how I listen when I drive. I don't listen when I work. There's no way I could do that. I have to listen to music or nothing. I can't listen to spoken word stuff. So the only time I get to listen to podcasts, and there's a lot of them I listen to, it happens when I drive. So I don't think that there are real answers for those things. It really comes down to what you're comfortable with doing and what you're comfortable experimenting with and seeing what works for you. Like twice a week works for us. There are 3 of us. It is really hard to coordinate 3 schedules. I have 4 kids. Cormac has 3 kids. Neil has 2 kids. I mean, how the heck do we even make this happen for 4 years? I have no idea how we've done that, but we have.
That's why we're recording at 3 o'clock in the morning.
For you.
Okay.
I mean, it's one of those things that you have to think about. Honestly, every week would be great, I think. But and we've thought about ways to try to make that happen. But at the same time, it's also like it's more work to do that. I mean, that's twice as many shows. It's twice as much to think about almost. So if we maybe didn't do all the back end work and we just had to show up and record, we probably could do it once a week. But because we do everything, I just don't see how we could even make that happen.
Bob, when we first started, if you go back, you look at some of the times on our episodes, they varied quite a bit. And I think we just spoke until we kind of exhausted a topic, or at least said what we wanted to say. And if we said it in 40 minutes or if we said it in an hour and 10 minutes, it didn't really matter. And so, but I think that the hour-long format just kind of worked out best for the 3 of us as we discussed a topic. About an hour was what kind of ended up happening.
It just felt right.
It just felt right. And it's rare that any one of us has to go, okay, time to wrap it up. I mean, it does happen sometimes where we try and keep it to an hour, but usually because we start rambling and then it's like, okay, guys, we're about an hour. It's time to wrap it up. So I would say that's just kind of worked out to the right distance for us when we're doing a show.
Okay, well, let's change gears here for a moment. For the people who aren't thinking about doing podcasts, but still want to be involved digitally in some way. They want to be a part of this process in some way. We could talk about Twitter, because we're all on Twitter. We could talk about Instagram. We're all on Instagram. And there's companies that are on those platforms, and then there's individuals that are on those platforms, and individuals from those companies that are on platform. And you know that person's associated with this company, even though they're not tweeting or they're not Instagramming on behalf of that company, right?
Sure.
So what are your thoughts? Let's take Instagram, because that's one of the platforms that I think that if you're in a creative field, you should be on Instagram. I don't understand why there are people who do what we do for a living that aren't on Instagram. It's something that just baffles me, to be honest with you.
I would say, Bob, to kind of answer your question or to get to it, for me, it's all about engagement. We probably all get tens and hundreds of followers every couple of months, or Bob, for you probably get a couple of hundred every week or something. But for me, it's engagement. If somebody follows me and they start to engage with me, having conversations with me back and forth, I gladly follow them. And then some of them become friends that we end up meeting at conventions or other places, or sometimes there's people I know, quote unquote, air quotes here, but that I've never met, but I feel like we're great friends. And so for me, if they want to be involved in that, whether it's Instagram, whether it's on Facebook, or whether it's on Twitter, or even posting to our site, making comments, it's all about engagement for me. So if you do that and you're engaged, then you're part of the conversation. But if you're just following to follow and you don't really engage, then okay, that's fine too. But you're not going to get that same level of attention, at least from me. I don't know about you guys.
Well, let me interject something here, because maybe this will be interesting. Because maybe we can talk about scale for a moment. So when I first started off, and this has been true for Twitter, and it was true for Instagram, that when I first started off and I had 1,500 people follow me on Twitter, those are the people that I connected with the most. And it's because there weren't so many that I didn't know who they were. And so the amount of engagement that I was able to have with these people was much higher. And as I crossed the 5,000 threshold or the 10,000 threshold, it got to the point to where I couldn't keep up with it anymore. And yes, I'm well aware that you can use third-party applications like TweetDeck or Hootsuite to kind of control what your stream is. But I've found it interesting that as the people who follow me have grown, I've been able to connect less with those folks than when I had far fewer people. And the kind of the litmus test I have is if you follow me, I'm not going to follow you back. If you engage me, I will engage you back. And then it's at that level that I start to dial in with people. It's almost like I hate to put it this way, but it's almost like I'll dance with you if you ask me to dance, but I'm not going to ask you to dance. Does that, it's a terrible way to put it, but it's become, it's so big. I don't know how, relatively speaking, I don't have that many followers on Twitter or on Instagram. I don't know how these other people do it, quite honestly. There's that kind of social protocol that if somebody retweets one of your things, you should say, "Thanks, Neil. I appreciate the retweet." And I used to be really, really good at that stuff. And starting about 2 years ago, I just couldn't do it anymore. And my Twitter engagement took a hit as a result of it because I'm not able to follow kind of the expectations that exist between civilized people on Twitter. And so I'm curious as to, say I'm a 26-year-old architecture graduate. I'm in my first or second job. I've got 2 or 3 years in the bank, and I want to use one of these platforms to increase my digital footprint and help establish myself as a thought leader in my industry, right? These are all kind of buzz phrases that I'm sure we've all heard many, many times. So how does that person do what it is that we do? How, if they look at us and say, these people have experienced success, I should emulate what they're doing. What are the things that you would want to distill down to tell that person so that they could achieve that similar type of success? Part of it's the engagement, but there's got to be more to that, I would think.
Consistency and sincerity.
Well, you took the fun out of that, Neil, just getting to the right answers so quickly.
So fast.
Just edit that out and let's struggle a bit before we get to those answers.
As you said, Bob, it's 3:00 in the morning. I'm trying to just be succinct.
Yeah. Well, I think there's definitely the sincerity and the right. I used to tell people that regularity is really key. But what I found is interesting is of the people that I follow or that I engage with. So it's interesting that some people will use, say, like Instagram, for an instance. They'll use it and take pictures of their kid doing a cannonball in the pool, and then they'll turn around and take a picture of a welded connection on a project that they're doing. And I find that very interesting. For me, that's much more rewarding than if somebody has these really highly curated, kind of themed posts. Like they always use the exact same filter, right? Or, I mean, there's kind of a formulaic approach to it versus, or the people that, and I hate this, but I understand why they do it. They'll take a picture and they'll say, blah, 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 whatever it is, enter. And then they'll leave a comment with 500 hashtag words on there, right? And which
Yep.
I take that as a sign that someone's looking just to, not necessarily to develop the hashtag or to develop their following, but just they're trying to get likes on their picture. They're trying to get, they don't care who it is. They're just trying to make this 15 like photo go to a 500 like photo.
Yeah, I don't follow people like that.
You don't?
For that reason.
Yeah.
There's no sincerity there. I don't know why you're doing it, but I'm not interested.
Yeah, I think part of the way that I take on this stuff is I just want to give people a glimpse into what it's like to be me, right? So it is an amalgamation of all that stuff. It's my rock climbing, it's my kids, it's my coffee brewing, it's whatever is the thing of the day. Because I want everybody to know that I'm a real person and I'm not a curated collection of high art all the time, let alone architecture. I mean, it's one of those things where this is who I am, and I'm not I hate to say that, like, this is my brand, but like I'm not trying to be a brand on those things. I'm trying to be me, even though I guess that's kind of what it is if you want to use that the dirty word of personal brand. I mean, it really is this stuff that I am interested in, and so I'm not going to curate it down to one subsection of what it's like to be me, like, because I can't even imagine trying to do that. That would be so. I feel like there would be so much left out of what makes me up. And part of it is, like, I am super scattered. I am all over the place. I totally consider myself to be like eggs in all kinds of baskets, not just one basket. So it's not just architecture for me. Whereas other people, like, I'm almost jealous of how focused they can be on something, even though I know that would never work for me. But I try to give an accurate representation of who I am, even though that's not really what I'm trying to do. I'm not trying to represent who I am. I just want to share stuff.
In my particular case, it's exactly what it is. It's Instagram, which it's whatever strikes my fancy at the moment. I mean, I have used Instagram as a way for me to kind of get over a phobia of... I had a phobia of sharing my artwork with anybody. Never let anybody see it. And I've used Instagram because it was received pretty well and people seemed to like it, and it just kind of stuck. And then every once in a great while I keep getting this shot, hey, you've been posting pictures of like stuff that you do throughout your life, but where are those sketches that I like so much? And so I kind of almost do it out of duty to, every once in a great while keep because I sketch every day, or practically every day, but it's just stuff. And I think when I ran through this kind of gamut of posting something once every day for 365 days, because it was just a way for me to kind of get over this issue I had with myself of not thinking that my art was any good. So whatever. I don't want to sit on the couch here and talk about that. But so now it's really just about whatever strikes my fancy at the moment, whether it's driving by and seeing, hey, look, there's a really cool old truck, and post a picture of that just because I think it's a cool truck. Not fishing for any likes or anything like that, but just saying, hey, here's an old cool Dodge and things like that. So I think the thing that annoys me the most, especially on Instagram, because I love following like photographers and the iPhone photographers, the people who are creative with just the medium of being able to take a photograph and instantly put it up and see what they can do with it that way. But when people use Instagram, air quotes of the Instagram, and they put up this heavily edited, heavily photoshopped image, and then they post it up and say, hey, look what I did. And I'm like, yeah, that's not really the intent of Instagram.
Not authentic to the medium.
Yeah. It's funny you say that, because that's one of my pet peeves too, is that you go clearly that you took that on a timer with a wide angle lens, and you took it into some editing software and then probably emailed it to yourself so that you could post it to your Instagram feed. It goes back to that disingenuous kind of...
Absolutely. And really, I mean, I use Twitter the same way. I'm not as diligent as Neil or Evan on Twitter as they are, and it shows because I don't have as many followers. I engage people when they personally engage me, but kind of when I see something cool that I like, I retweet. Most of it's usually comic book artists and some of the great work that they do, but other than that, it's whatever little blip of crud that's coming out of my head.
Cormac, you don't spend your Sunday afternoons going off about football games like I do?
Yeah, no. Sometimes I have to quiet.
Yes, I do put a warning in my Twitter feed about that, so watch out on Sunday afternoons in the fall.
Which I don't understand, because you're a Raider Nation guy. What's there to talk about?
Snatching defeat out of the jaws.
All right. Let's not go there on this podcast, all right? We should have recorded this before this past Sunday's game.
We don't want Neil to cry.
Yeah, well, we'll see. We may have some more crying before this next episode comes out, so we'll see.
He gets very sensitive about his Las Vegas Raiders.
Shut the hell up, man. Now that shit's coming out. I'm going to cut that. All right, Bob, what else you got for us? You're like putting Archispeak here on the couch, so...
Well, no one else has done it before, so... I keep thinking about, so what are the things that people who see what we do, what would they want to know?
Like, let me ask you a question real quick. So, and you sort of answered it earlier, but I was curious, and I wanted to ask you this before we kind of went on this little stream here. You've been doing this now for 770 some odd posts, and you've developed your own language, you've developed your own kind of like style and things like that, but do you now feel it's your duty to keep doing it?
Yes. Yeah, and you know what? I'll tell you this, because I get asked that question a lot, and I apologize for interrupting, but yeah, it's not nearly as fun as it used to be. In the beginning, it was nerve-wracking and exciting and thrilling, and everything was brand new, and I was having to learn software, and how do I edit this, and how do I upload that, and how do I put links into this, and how do I find the way to write the way I would speak so that you can read it and visualize if I'm moving my hands or not. So what takes me an hour to write today took me 4 hours to write 6 years ago. I would probably say it took me 8 hours per post easy just to write for the first year that I wrote stuff. And think about it. I wrote like on average every 3 days. So yeah, it was a little crazy. But the thing about it now is I feel it's important. I feel I have a responsibility to the profession to keep doing it, because my footprint I couldn't tell you why it's gotten to be as big as it is. I feel it's important, and every time I think I'm going to quit, because it really is the equivalent of having, like, I work 6 days a week, because I easily spend, probably for every 1 hour of writing a blog post, I spend 4 hours responding to the fallout from having written a blog post, from emails, from comments to, I mean, and it's not just comments on my site or emails to my email, it's comments on Facebook, or it's stuff on Twitter, or it's stuff on LinkedIn, or it's, wherever I decide to share this stuff, there's some kind of engagement, and I feel like I have a responsibility. If I'm going to put it out there and someone's going to engage with me on it, I have to follow through on that, right? That's kind of a social contract that I have agreed to make with the people who have, if they're going to spend 5 minutes of their life reading something that I put together and then send me a message on it, I feel duty bound to respond to it. But the scale has gotten out of control, and I can't do it anymore. And so that's been tough. It's taken a lot of the fun out of it. I told you that I just got through doing a bunch of research on my website for this presentation I'm giving. And there's a lot of really amazing things that have happened as a result of me having done this. I can go to Google Analytics, and I know, it's not that I know it off the top of my head. Like I said, I literally just looked this up. So there's not a place on earth that somebody has not been to my website. Like, I mean, you think of a place other than the Antarctic, because they don't record traffic there, and Western Sahara, that's another place that Google Analytics doesn't track. Those are the two places. But everywhere else, somebody from that place has been to my website, which that blows my mind. Google Analytics lets you drill down to other kind of metrics that are really fascinating. And my website's been translated into 400 different languages. And I've had visitors from, as of yesterday, 30, I'm going to get it wrong now, 39,990 cities on the planet. That's mind-boggling. And I'll meet somebody, I'll go to a convention or to some AI event, and somebody will walk up to me, and this happened to me last year. It was a guy who went to school in Mexico City, and he'd graduated, and he came here to find work. And he said that he started reading my website the year before he went to architecture school. And he goes, everyone in my school read your website. And he goes, there's a whole generation of people that are coming out of architecture school, and they all know who you are, and they know this website. That blew my mind because I'd never thought about it like that before.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden I thought, oh my God, don't screw it up now, right? Which before it was just me sitting on the couch doing whatever I felt like. And now I have so many people that are reaching out. But kids, I added up, it was like 26,100 and something emails that I've responded to in the last 6.5 years. I go, just think of the amount of time and effort. And I go, that's a big part of why there's a community of people who engage on my site, because nobody's on an island, right? So generally speaking, if you leave a comment or if you send me an email, chances are really, really good that I'll respond back to you. More so in the first 4 or 5 years than now. Now, like I said, it's hard for me to keep up. So there are people whose emails that I'll save and mark that I need to respond to this one, and it's been a year, and I haven't been able to. It's been pushed on to page 6, and I don't see it anymore, and so it's out of mind. But I know it's there because I see it in my unopened email count, right? And it's what makes it hard is, and this isn't, oh, poor Bob, let's feel sorry for him for a minute, but it kind of makes you feel like a jerk, right? Because each one of those emails, it's one person. They don't know about the other 26,000, right? They just know that they have a question, or they feel lost, or they need some help, or they want some guidance. And here's a guy who stuck his head up. And I don't think they're asking me because I'm a genius. I think they're asking me because they found me, right? There's not that many people they feel like they can ask this question to. So they just want help, and they email me, and I feel like I need to answer that question. It's not unreasonable that they're asking this question, but I can't do them all. I can't answer 100 emails a day. I literally don't have the time to do that. So that's part of the reason it's very selfish of me to go, I wish more people did what it is that I'm doing, because then maybe we could spread the wealth out, and we can, all these people that are so interested in becoming an architect, I want them to hear from people who are having positive experiences in the field, not just the really loud minority that says, I don't like it, or it treated me poorly, or I can't find work, or whatever the case may be. I want people to hear that I've always had a job. I've gone through 3 recessions now, and I had a job through every single one of them. Does that make me lucky, or does it make me good at what I do? I don't know. It's probably a little bit of both.
Yeah.
But it's not a horror show for everybody. And when people say architects don't make enough money, I think we touched on this earlier, but we didn't really take it to a conclusion. I'm sure Neil or somebody diverted the conversation, but
yeah, probably.
Probably is people go, architects don't make enough money, and I go, you know what? We do really well. Do we make the high? I mean, if you think about where minimum wage is at, or the average salary in this country is, or if you look at what school teachers make, or literally pick almost any other profession other than brain surgeon and trial attorney, and we're doing really good for that group. And I feel really it makes me a little sick to my stomach when people think that because we went to school and it takes a long time to get our degree and we have to take a bunch of tests and they're kind of hard, all of a sudden that entitles us to a bigger paycheck. It doesn't work that way. Nothing in life works that way. You get paid commensurate with your skill and your abilities, and if you have something that people need, you're going to get paid for it. And so whenever somebody says, I can't find work, and this is going to get me in a lot of trouble, if people go, I can't find work or I don't make enough money, I always go, well, maybe the problem isn't the profession. Maybe the problem is your role within this profession. And I'd rather attribute that to a skill set than to castigate some person into, that they're not good at their jobs. Maybe they're not doing the right job. Maybe who they think they are is not really who they are. They haven't figured out what their skill set is yet. But yeah, so I feel a responsibility to keep doing this. And it's I was going to ask you this question. Do you see a point down the road where you think that you're going to stop making these podcasts? Because I keep thinking one of these days I'm going to stop writing Life of an Architect, but then I go, I feel like I can't.
Oh, that's a really good question. I don't think we've hit that point yet, but I definitely, I think about that when it's 8:00 on a Sunday and I'm just wrapping up an edit and I'm like, do I really want to keep doing this? So yeah, but I think those thoughts enter just about anything, right? I mean, I just finished 3 large projects and we just submitted. And the day or two before that submittal date, you're thinking, oh, I'm just so tired of this. I don't want to do this anymore. But you do it and you keep doing it because nothing in this life is easy and you have to work at it. And it's just part of the deal. But whether or not I see us doing this forever, probably not, but I'm not sure where that point is where we stop. And at least for me, I'm not there yet.
Maybe you guys will be like that Van Halen or something, and Cormac's going to drop out, and you guys are going to want to keep the group together, so you're going to have to like replace him with somebody else.
You ready for the call, Bob?
You're not ready to get off the gravy train.
Then we could have the reunion tour.
Are you applying? Yeah.
You know what? No. You know, give me a call if I ever decide to stop doing Life of an Architect. Maybe I'll have a void to fill. But yeah, you know what? I'll tell you this as a kind of added piece to that. When I switched from 7 articles in 7 days, like when I was writing at that rate, and I thought it was going to kill me after a while, and I went to 3. Going to 3 felt like cake, right? It was so much easier than doing 7, and I did that for years. And my blogs coincided with the recession. So part of the reason I stayed with it was a creative outlet for me at a time when I would go to work and I didn't have 8 hours worth of work to do every day. So this was a way for me to add another arrow to my quiver. So it was a creative outlet. But then things started getting busy again. And probably about 2 years ago, I went from 3 posts to 2 posts. And man, that really felt great, right? I mean, 2 a week, that's super easy. And then about a year and a half ago, I went to 1 post a week. And the thing that comes to my mind every single time is I go, how in the hell did I ever do 3 a week for 3 years?
And it seemed easy at the time.
At the time, I go, it was a piece of cake. And now there's no chance. I mean, there's just literally no chance.
Do you feel like the 1's gotta like really count though?
No. maybe I should. Yeah, no.
Well, your posts are pretty long. I mean, honestly, they're a decent amount of words, and you've got pictures and stuff in there. And I mean, there's other blogs out there where it's 1 or 2 sentences and they post every day. But I mean, you must have like some kind of a construct that you feel like you've got to kind of fill.
No, it's because I suffer from logorrhea. It's a real word. Look it up. Yeah. So when I sit down and I write these posts, I feel like nobody wants to read them, right? That they want to look at pictures. So my formula is really, really straightforward. And most people, if they've been to my site with any regularity, and if they decided to think about it, they'd figure this out really quick. My formula is write a couple sentences that just kind of says, okay, this is what I'm going to do. And then put a picture in. And then write a paragraph that describes what's in that picture. And then put another picture in. And then describe what's in that picture. Continue for however many pictures I need to get you from starting to end. And then say, well, there you go. That was it. Awesome. See you later. That's the formula. And so I think my posts average somewhere between about 1,200 and 1,500 words each. But it's not uncommon they get up to 2,000. And these aren't highly crafted words. I mean, one of the things that I do is my posts are not editorialized. I mean, I sit down, I write, and I stop, and I hit publish. And frequently the next day, I'll have to go in there and I'll reread it, and I'll go, what happened there? Or just something weird has happened. I don't know if you guys have experienced this, but I'll write something, and I'm pretty good at typing. You know, AutoCAD has gotten me to be a solid 8-finger typer. But I think faster than I can type.
Yeah.
And a lot of times I think along 2 lines, and I can only type 1 line.
Yeah.
2 trains of thought. And so sometimes things are a little disjointed, or there's really egregious grammar issues that are going on. And I'll go back in the next morning and reread it and go and be horrified and go back and change a couple of words. But I generally don't rewrite it because I don't have time for that. So the process of creation is binary for me. It starts and then it goes until it ends, right? I don't have a bunch of posts that are in progress on my website right now. The one that published while we're recording, it published like 45 minutes ago. I wrote that while I was waiting to get on this call. And it published at midnight, my time. And I'll probably sit down and write the next post that comes out the day before that one comes out. And I won't know what I'm going to write until I sit down and go, what am I doing? I mean, that's how I find my content now, is I take whatever it is that and that's part of what makes it fresh and makes it honest, I think, is I talk about what I'm actually doing. I don't know what else I could do.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not clever enough to have an editorial calendar.
Well, that's very much how we approach our show too.
We've tried sometimes a couple of summers ago when we were having some trouble coordinating our vacation schedules and recording schedules, like, oh, let's pre-record an episode a couple of weeks in advance or maybe a month. And that's just never happened. It just can't. It's like you said, Bob, we sit down, we record, we talk about what we want to talk about, and we're done. Now, clearly with this sort of show, there's some post-production work that has to go on, but it's not just as simple as turn it and post it, but that's kind of how we do it as well. And I think that lends or gives to our successes that we've had.
So do you think, to the people who might be listening to this, whose names aren't Mrs. Phelan or Mrs. Pan, but do you think the people that are listening to this, do you think their takeaway is the spontaneity of the creative process? Because both of us are saying the same thing, that whenever we create something, the fruit of that effort is in that moment. Like when you sit down to do it, that's when it comes together. There's not a lot of upfront research. There's not a lot of, I'll say this and then you say this, and then that's when you should come in with this point so I can follow up with that point.
Right.
Yeah.
There's not that going on. It's very organic.
I mean, we build a show as water cooler talk, right? So it honestly is that. And so I feel like people just want to show up at the water cooler and see what's going on today. And so while there is no grand scheme for a story arc, there definitely are threads that pop up here and there that keep that continuum going, that I think people find some interest in finding out what happened with this or that. And those just show up naturally. But overall, I think it's just because, and we hear this from especially people who've been around the profession for a long time. I just turn you guys on so that we have something to listen to because I feel like I'm back in studio again. And that's incredibly gratifying to me to understand that is one way that people listen to this show.
Your studio must have been a lot different than mine. There were a lot of fart jokes in my studio.
That's the stuff we edit out.
Yeah, and the joke was, I just did it. You know, not that there's not a funny story there. So, yeah, you'll take that out, right?
Sure, I will. You bet.
So Bob, what maybe we can wrap this up here with a couple final questions. But I'm wondering, like, what are you interested in? I guess where are you interested in taking it, or what are you interested in getting better at? I mean, something along those lines. If you can apply something like that to where you're going.
Well, I had a goal when I first started off that through the act of doing this, that I would become more succinct with how I made my points. And I already blew it, right? Just then, I kept talking. I should have stopped right then. But I'm not very good at editing my thought process. And I think this has to do with, I think architects, at least creative architects, are radial thinkers, right? So if you give me a problem, I'm going to work my way in from the fringes on all sides until I kind of reach a balance of all the moving parts, right? It's not linear. My wife, who's got her advanced degrees in math, she's a very linear thinker, right? So she can track from step 1 to step 20. And if something went south on her, she knows how to back up to go in a different direction. And because I think the way that I do, it makes me a good architect, I think, but it makes me a good storyteller, but it makes me a bad writer. It takes me 5 times as many words to say something than it should. And I keep thinking that through the act of doing this, I'm going to get better at that. It just hasn't happened. And maybe I should just give up on it.
I mean, that's like the beauty of the Southern storytelling. It's, you're texting, man. You can't just give directions like, oh, you go that way, then you turn left, then you turn right. There's got to be a dog on some porch. There's got to be, like, grass growing up through some parked car and all that other stuff. And you've got to tell the story that leads you to where you're going. And that's the beauty of, that's what I've always found is the beauty of just your blog posts, is that it's not just, okay, here's a picture, here's some really boring words to go with the picture. It's the story, it's the weaving and the intertwining. Forget the succinct crap. It just doesn't work for you. And it shouldn't. Clearly
it doesn't. I think I've let that ship sail. There's the phrase in my office. If you ask me what they'll say, that the way they put it is, if you ask me what time it is, I'll tell you how to build a clock. You know what? And it'd be funny if it didn't hurt so much.
It's funny because it's true.
It is true.
We're not laughing at you. We're not laughing with you. We're laughing at you.
Yeah. Get the joke right, Cormac.
We have an open floor plan in my office. And so we're a small office. There's 8 of us, and I can shoot every single person with a rubber band. And I could probably hit 2 or 3 of them with the same rubber band in the same shot. And so there are moments to where it's almost like, all right, everybody, put your mouses to the side. It's story time from Grandpa Bob. And I've got some yarn I got to spin. And I think one of them, we have a guy in our office, and he actually was live tweeting it one day because I just decided I needed to tell everybody why I thought leprechauns were jerks.
Oh my gosh, I need to hear this story.
I got my reasons. And so literally I'm looking around and I realize, okay, my name's on the door and we bill hourly in my office. And I realize I have shut every human being in our office down so they can listen to me talk about leprechauns. But I still finished my story before I quit. But that's just part of it. And I think that if we circle way back to the beginning, I think that's part of the reason my site has been received the way that it has, and that is that it's anecdotal in nature. It's not technical. There's not a lot of jargon. You don't have to be on the inside to understand what I'm talking about. My writing style is conversational, and my delivery is anecdotal. And not everybody can do that, and I honestly didn't know that I could do it. I'm not sure that I do it with success all the time, but there's a frequency to it at the very least. And so I'll tell you that the blog posts that I read, the blog sites that I go to, the ones I enjoy the most are that way. My website is what I want from other websites, which is part of the reason I do it the way I do it. And those are the ones that I like. So my advice to people is if you're gonna start a blog, you have to be prepared to put yourself out there. You have to be prepared to not act like you know everything. You have to humanize yourself, and it's okay to be 100% who you are. So like, let's say that you like architecture, cat juggling, and crocheting. You know what? And you think that you're so unique that nobody's like you, right? Guess what? You're completely wrong. There's a jillion people out there that like those same weird things, and they will find you, and you will create this community of like-minded people, and you'll find that you'll achieve things that you didn't set out to achieve when you started. It's the whole, like reading a book on how to raise a kid, right? That book only works for the guy who wrote it because that was him and his kid. Your kid's going to be different, right? So if you wrote a book on how to raise a kid, it's only for you, right? At least that's what I think. And I think blogs work in that same way, that you have to find a way to make people want to come into, to return. I don't know if you guys have the ability to do this. This is something else I thought was kind of cool. So again, on Google Analytics, it will tell you, as long as people don't clear out their cache or their cookies, it'll tell you how many times they've been to your website. And I remember looking at this once, and this was, I don't know, a couple years into it, when I first really started to drill down into Google Analytics and all the like really creepy, cool stuff that you can discover from that site. And I realized that I'd written something like 300 articles, but I had like 10,000 people, 10,000 plus people who had been to my website more than 600 times.
Wow.
And I couldn't understand that. And I go, why would somebody come so often? I mean, I get if they've read every single thing I've ever written, right? But I'd only written like 300 articles. Why were they there more than 600 times?
Because they're there showing other people what you're doing.
Yeah, well, I mean,
Like, hey, check this guy out.
Well, clearly there's an answer to that, but that's part of it. I mean, if you're gonna have a blog and you're gonna create this narrative, hopefully first person, anecdotal in nature kind of website, the fact that those people are coming back more than once, that's really telling. And the fact that they come back so often means that they're engaged in you, the person, not necessarily what you, the person, is doing, right? And that's really kind of, I mean, that's kind of, we should take a moment and let that kind of sink in a little bit, right? Because what that means is people are connecting to the process of the individual. Like, I don't know if you remember this, but I used to, when I'd go on vacation, when I was publishing a lot, I didn't want to go a week without putting something on my website. So I would line up guest writers, people to post something while I was on vacation. And I found that nobody wanted to read them. That I really, it's almost like it was worse when I put a guest post on my website. So I quit it. And what I realized is because people aren't coming to my website because they're really interested in how important front doors to your house are. It's because they want to know why I think front doors to the house are important. And that was kind of a watershed moment. There was kind of an epiphany when I realized that it had gotten to that point. It was pretty cool.
Well, thanks for sharing your behind the scenes, man. This has been really fun. I think there's a lot of interesting stuff to take away from this behind the scenes of your blog and the podcast, and kind of why we do what we do and what motivates us and what's kept us going for so long. I think there's a lot of parallel stuff in there, but there are a lot of differences too. And it's interesting to hear kind of different perspectives coming from these two different sources, at least, that we've got here tonight.
Hey guys, I do have a really good idea. If we're starting to run short on topics, we need to start scalping his site.
I thought we'd been doing that.
Oh yeah. I'm saying we were going to do it in the future, not that we've already done it.
Oh.
Come on, be cool, man. Be cool.
Keeping it real, guys. Just keeping it real.
Well, yeah, but you know what? I would encourage you to do that. And the reason is because the things that are on my website, we've all done it. People can relate to them, right? So it's not like this is some unique topic that I've covered it. If I talk about a tack board, I'm sure you guys have tack board stories as well.
Actually, I think we might have talked about a tack board or a whiteboard last week when we were talking about the office layouts.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, we all like to think we're unique and individual, but yet at the same time, we all have a great many similar experiences in our development.
Very true.
Yep.
Very true.
Neil's mama says he's special.
Had to go there, didn't you? Had to do it.
Of course.
All right. Well, hey, before we go, I want to give a shout out to ARCAT. They're helping to sponsor this show, so want to give them a shout out. Thanks to them. I know that's a service that Cormac uses practically daily, so
quite often.
It is something we use. And then also too, just want to remind everybody, for links to our catalog of episodes, visit our website at archispeakpodcast.com. At the site, you can also sign up for our newsletter that includes links to everything we mentioned in the episode. Between episodes, join the conversation by leaving comments at archispeakpodcast.com or on our Facebook page or even on Twitter. Links for all of those can be found at visiting the site again, archispeakpodcast.com. And special shout out to Bob Borson for joining us on this epically special episode of Archispeak. And everyone, thanks for listening. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Or good morning.
Or good morning.
That is true.
All right, so what happens next?
It's a slow road, but you have to Coffee you can start now, or you can hang your head in despair. It's the only road will take you there. They may tell you that you'll never recover, baby. I've learned one thing or another about you. It's the only road to get you there. And if they don't know how to treat a lady, baby, you can teach them how to act. They could use a little bit of discipline and a hand on the backside, baby. Let's pretend we're doing karate, and while we're at it, have the opposite day. Some like to hug, some leave a bruise, some need to go. I'm ready for you. Hey, put your skates on. Come on together. Hey, hey, on. I see through us. It escapes on. Greats on the real world. It manufactures glory for the feeling its fractures. Bulldozing through like a tractor. A cracked actor, a mother of pearl. And if they don't know how to hold a woman, maybe you can put them back in their place. They could use a little bit of discipline and a hand across their face. Baby, let's pretend we're doing karate, and while we're at it, have the opposite day. Some like to hug, some leave a bruise, and stop mid-door. I'm ready for you. Let's pretend we're doing karate, and while we're at it, have the opposite day. Some like to hug, some leave a bruise, and stop mid-door. I'm ready for you. Let's pretend we're doing karate, and while we're at it, have the opposite day. Some like to hug, some leave a bruise, and some mid-door. I'm ready, yeah. Let's pretend we're doing karate, and while we're at it, have the opposite day. Some like to hug, some leave a bruise, and some mid-door. I'm ready, yeah. On a soft mid-door. I'm coming to you on a soft mid-door. I'm coming to you.
We're sorry, the number you have dialed is not in service at this time.